A healthier person, someone who's much closer to a balanced state of health, is someone you could go visit your past as much as you want. Just don't live there. You know, and in looking at how we talk about healing and the release of our past, I think that we so often confuse that with not remembering our past. Of course you can. But you don't want to remember it in such a way that every time you go back there, it's like swallowing crushed glass. You want to be able to go back there and say, okay, I learned this, I learned this. You go back with gratitude, or you go back with a sense of comfort. And the other thing is, a healthy person, I think, is someone who has the capacity to see the symbolic reasons why things have occurred in their life the way they did and the way they are. And there's a lot I can say about that, but in a nutshell, I'd like to give an example, and that's that imagine that you are the sort of person who has relationships, personal, let's talk about a romantic relationship, that always ends in the same way. You're the sort of person who enters into relationships in which you are always there to help the other person. And you're always there to do anything this other person wants out to. And this is how your dialogue goes. The other person comes home and says, oh, I've had such a horrible day, and you say, oh, let me help you. What can I do for you? You want to talk about it? Right? And let's say this person does this 6 out of 7 days a week, and you still don't change your way. And yet through the process, this person, I don't know, gets a little stronger, maybe not, but let's say he doesn't. If you notice how I assume it's a man, I make note of that, by the way. So anyway, the man gets a signal in his head or in his gut that it's time for him to get on with this pattern. And if this woman is not strong enough to say, God, you are boring me. Do you know what a bore you've become? Learn a different vocabulary. Shape up, but shape up or shut up. Right? His own life force is going to guide him out of that relationship and into another relationship where his partner would be strong enough to do that for him. In the meantime, you are going to feel abandoned and abandoned and abandoned again. Now, if you decide to be angry at that man, you're going to miss the point. Instead, you need to take a symbolic look. You need to stand back and say, why does this happen to me every 3 months with everyone I date? What's going on here? It's got to have something to do with me. And at that point, you're finally realizing that if you remained angry at this person, you would be shooting the messenger and not getting the message. We are now into the territory above your waist, and we're into your internal reality. Down here, of course, is your external. I want you to keep that in mind because there's such an intriguing difference between these two worlds. Your fourth chakra, of course, is your emotional zone. This area of your body regulates your sense of harmony, your sense of love. It is always associated with that sweet, sweet energy that we know as love. And I'll tell you, I love the heart energy because the truth is, for as arrogant as the mind can be, and the mind is an arrogant instrument, it is this part of your body that calls the shots. If your heart's not in the ring, as they say, you're going nowhere. I don't care how much the mind wants to push a project. It just will not work unless your heart's in it. This is mission control. Which is why, to learn the energy of the heart, you want to learn it in the most sophisticated way that you can. And I mean spiritually sophisticated. I don't mean I don't mean romantic sophistication. I mean spiritual sophistication. This is also your center where you cope with forgiveness. Now, forgiveness is another. I personally think that the majority of people would rather sleep on a bed of hot coals and then get up and be impaled before they would forgive somebody. It's that unattractive an idea. But we have to talk about it because the reality is healing is the journey of forgiveness. And that's just the way it is. What do you think pulling unplugging your circuits is all about, if not forgiving? I mean, forgiveness, quite frankly, is simply giving up the illusion that things could have been or should have been otherwise. It's no more than that. The fourth chakra sits right between your bottom three and your top three, as if to say, you cannot make safe passage into the upper decks of your consciousness unless you manage and go through the initiation of the heart, which is to learn the true meaning of what it means to understand love, not just loving another, but what love is all about, that love is our way to tangibly touch the life force. Right? That one of the greatest acts of self-love is, in fact, forgiveness. It is not a favor we do to somebody else. It's the greatest thing we could... It's really, forgiveness is the most selfish thing you'll ever do. Because what you're actually doing is you're unplugging from a part of your past or from another person that says, I'm so tired of financing you with my energy. I'm taking it back because what happened between us happened. I simply am not interested in financing that memory anymore. I'm going to let you go. Okay? That's. So this is how we want to understand the fourth chakra as its central power place. Now we're going to jump in, as we always do, through the back door of a chakra so you can understand how we lose power from that, right? All right, here go our energy circuits. And we're going to make a line like this through our history because the inability to forgive, for example, tends to run like a line. And we just load it up. We'll start with our parents or our siblings. And then we would go up to the people we used to play with or high school friends. Then we mature there to people in our 20s. Then people, you know, you keep a log like this, don't you? In your 30s. And then people in your 40s, and et cetera, et cetera. And every single time every day when you get up in the morning, you start sending your energy through your past. And what you've got to remember is that at some point, your past is going to be more real to you energetically than your present. You won't even be able to see your present life because all you're really looking at is one historic situation after another. And you speak this way. You speak in terms of your history. You do this. You say things like, well, I'd like to do this, but last time I did it. And you instantly run back 10 or 20 years instead of your angel sitting there kicking you in the astral saying, but this is a new decade. You've got completely different maturity and you move on. But you don't hear this. Instead of moving on, you move backwards. Okay? It could be that your angel says to you, look, I've arranged a date for you. And you're going to meet this person at, we thought maybe a coffee shop. I'm working on his angel, I'm working on you, and we've arranged the time we're going to meet, so make sure you get there, because this would be a nice relationship for the two of you. So all of a sudden, you suddenly think, I have this craving for coffee. And you think it's just you, right? And here your angel's pulling strings. So you start rolling down the street to this coffee shop, and you walk in, and you see this wonderful person sitting there, and she sees you, and all of a sudden, you go like this, and you go like this energetically. Wait right there. And you start pulling. The past come. I'll be right there. And then you put on those glasses and you think, oh, God, she looks exactly like he looks. And you end it right there. Or what's worse is once you meet, you pull out your wound file. So that you set the boundaries. You know, I don't date anybody who does this to me. You do this kind of thing. And it's all because... Anyone has ever done that? Uh-huh. Put your hands up, all of you. All right. So that has a lot to do with this chakra center, as does the inability to love yourself. To love yourself. I mean, this is a real tight zone, because I want to show you something. The language below the waist is very different than the language above the waist. Below the waist, because it has to do essentially with the 3 stages of tribal life. In below the waist language, the word self only is connected to ish. Okay? Selfish. But when you get above the waist, you put the ish on the other side, and you have self-development, self-fulfillment, self-care, self-love. Your tribe says selfish, selfish. But you're into a whole new concept of what the self means, of what it means to develop self. If it's not this, it's not that kind of thing. It's the journey of self-exploration, willing to look into your shadow side as well as celebrate the light that's in you. This is that part. This is also your center of what it means to love others. And, of course, you're going to start, we all do. Don't I talk like I'm not subject to this, but I am. We all start with loving each other, learning what the meaning of love is in this sort of tribal way, that we can only love people that look like us, walk like us, talk like us. Then we get to the second chakra, we can only really love people that we can sort of control or who have some influence, some connection to our physical security. Okay? We will tell ourselves we're in love with someone, even though we don't love them, because of their finances. Okay? We'll live that kind of illusion. And we work love up to the fact where we try to mature love into what it means to love a person. And we'll go through conditional love, and then we start the journey of unconditional love, of what that means. And that is also a part of the lessons that we learn through the 4th chakra. This is, of course, one of the most, like all of them, each chakra has its own way of draining your energy. But you can lose a lot of money on a business deal, or you can have your 17 cars stolen from you. None of that will drain you of the same energy so much as a broken heart, or a heart that's been violated in some way. Because this is the energy that talks to you about whether or not you like being alive. I don't care how much you own, and neither does your spirit, by the way. And that's what you've got to remember. Your spirit is not actually interested in counting the gold that lies in the bank. Your spirit prefers the gold that comes from the hearts of other people. And when all is said and done, unless that part of you feels fulfilled by how well you love another, and how, if you can allow others to love you, then you're going to live this life as though you are empty. Totally, totally empty. Okay? Now, let's move on to the positive side. Of course, the 4th chakra deals so much with the power of love in what it can do for others as well as yourself. You thrive with love. I mean, let's face it, love is a ball when it's done right, right? I mean, is there anything that's more fun? Right? We want to add to this the healing power of love. I'm not sure, quite frankly, that people who lack self-love are very successful at healing. I suspect they're not. And the reason is because the lack of self-love contributes so much to the depletion of the body. The fact is you have to have some degree of self-love to heal your body, all right, of self-appreciation, and that's part of the power of this. The energy of compassion plays an enormous role in the mature heart. Shall we say, let's call it the mature heart. And that the energy of compassion is so powerful because at this level, as you mature, you get past the difference between self-pity or pity toward others and what it means to truly have a compassionate energy. And to love someone enough, and this is very much the positive side of love, where you can love someone enough to let them suffer if that's what they need to do. To recognize that if I bandaged this wound too quickly, you'd simply produce another one because you would never have learned why you got this wound in the first place. I've got to love you enough to let you hurt. It's a strong kind of love, and it takes a very mature type of heart to recognize when you need strong love and when it's okay to say, someone, oh, come on, it's all right, I'll buy you a chocolate soda or something like that. This is that kind of love. The other positive side of one of the many positive sides of love, it's certainly endless, is that it gives you a language to God. And it's an irrational language. The heart doesn't necessarily need words to speak. You literally can say, I'm just going to focus on what I think ecstasy might feel like, and pull your attention out of your head, because it's the rational center of your body. You just pull it down, and you just focus on ecstasy, and perhaps at first you won't feel anything, and maybe at second, too. But as you continue a discipline that says, this is the irrational language of God, there is no reason in my heart, and focus on becoming totally unreasonable, you'll get there real fast. All right. Now, when you want to check on the flow of where this energy is and what you're connected to, you want to, as I said earlier, you want to ask yourself, is there anybody I need to forgive? Is there anybody you need to forgive? Let me do this again. Is there anybody you need to forgive? All right. Okay, now, I want you to think about this, and for yourself, list the people. And don't be too hasty in doing this, because you'd be surprised how many people you have to forgive lie in wait. You know, in the back of your closet, or where did you find this, right? So you list those, but start with the ones that really draw the most attention from you, and actually ask yourself, how much of my energy goes into that? How much of my energy am I financing? Or what about memories that have a hold on me that I simply can't let go of? It's interesting. Many people that I've met who have what I'd call negative memories, and they're not necessarily associated with people, but perhaps some kind of traumatic experience. As the years go by, I suspect that they exaggerate 10 more points per year on that experience. You know, that by the time, 10 or 20 years has gone by, now let's look at it from this point of view, they have to make the experience 20 years larger, otherwise they can't see it. All right? So I think there's a really, really powerful exaggeration process that takes place. Right? The other thing you want to recognize as you look toward the nature of love is to ask yourself, do you have any knowledge with yourself of what self-love is? Now, I'll tell you, you're going to start doing self-love from below the waist, because that's just the way it is. So you'll start self-love this way. When it's time to go on the journey of self-love, this is what happens. You pop into your individual heart for the first time. Prior to that, you've been living in a tribal heart, so that your tribe invests your heart for you. If you said, I've got to follow my own heart, I think I like this. No, you don't. You follow this. This is what the tribe believes in. This is the tribe manages your heart. Then one day, you pop out, and you suddenly realize, I have a heart of my own. Look at that. And you start looking at your life for the first time through your own sense of, I want to discover who I am. I mean, this feels good. And you scream I for the first time in a way you never had before. So now the trick is that you have to go back to your tribe and tell them in the nicest way possible, I'm nothing like you, and I'm out of this nightclub, okay? So you begin this journey into a very, very different quality of love, and you're going to start that journey, and the journey of self-love, you're going to go right back here, so that self-love means that you move out of the physical place where you are. The first thing you're going to do in the discovery of your own way of loving yourself is you'll change physical locations. You absolutely will. The next thing you'll do is you'll change jobs. Or you'll change your relationship. Or you'll change both. Because they know anything that you built before this time is not going to make the transition over the river. Okay? It's just not going to do it. And then you will change the way you look physically. You will. It is inevitable. You're going to look at yourself through tribal eyes and think, And then you'll do something to change yourself physically. And then you'll go through the passage into the heart. And of course, then you'll discover the nature of your wounds and why you've been hurt. You'll look at your whole life very differently. And that's why, and that's where and why you encounter the power of forgiveness so strongly. Because the essential key of recognizing you've passed some level of initiation into a much higher voltage of your spirit is when you are actually practicing forgiveness from this level instead of second chakra forgiveness, which means you simply put your weapons down but not the desire to shoot. Now I want to take you into the fifth chakra. This is your center of will. This is willpower. And there's a lot to learn in this one. And again, this line is so essential because obviously the center of will. Another way I want you to think of this as your center of choice. You know, the power of choice, what it means to make a wise choice, what it means to take responsibility for the choices you make. You think of it as this way, that what directs your energy circuits to the targets that they go to are the choices you make. This is what sends your energy back. Just like it's the power of choice, the power of will, that causes you, that allows you to have the, shall we say, vibrational stamina to get your energy out from something. Now, just as an example, I want you to focus on something that has your energy captured, that you simply can't unplug from. Anything you want, a relationship, I don't care what it is. It's irrelevant, because once you're plugged in, you're plugged in. But think of something that's really big, okay? Now, we're going to talk about your willpower. And we're going to talk about your power of choice. And when I say 3, unplug and make it forever. 1, 2, 3. Are you unplugged? No. Now that gives you, all right, that gives you a notion of how incredibly difficult it is to train this part. And here's the other reason. It's because our first encounter with will is below the waist. It's totally below the waist. That's why when it's so easy for our understanding of will and our understanding of the fifth chakra is tied to our ability to speak up. Okay? It's very hard to learn to speak up for yourself. It's very hard to learn how to represent who you are and establish your boundaries. It's just very difficult to do that. And our willpower has an incredibly intimate relationship with our second chakra. And the reason is we first encounter, you see, when you're in your first chakra, more or less, your tribe controls your will. You know, so you don't have a whole lot of conflict at that area. The conflict doesn't develop until we get to the second chakra, and the second chakra meets the fifth, and therein lies the conflict. Now, your first definition of willpower will be your ability to control others. That's willpower 101. All right, and you'll measure your success by tribal standards. The tribe will measure your success. And we'll say that you have a strong will by the amount of territory you've amassed in your first chakra. In terms of how many people you've put in here and how much money you amassed, this is your will zone. Okay? And that's why this controlling center has so much impact. Your center of control and the use of your will to control others is also tangible below the waist. And so you can feel and sense it. Now, this kind of willpower cannot help you heal. It is not possible. It's totally not possible. It also is reflected in the quality of choices that you make in, say, the negative side when we reverse it. When will is defined as your ability to control others, the other side of this level of perception is that you have no will. It's given over to somebody else in order that you be controlled as one of the members living in this group. See what I mean? You give over your control to this person so that person manages you. Okay? Now, if you are in that situation, and let's face it, most people are, there are many more followers than there are leaders, then you end up in this state where you have no ability to speak up and to speak up for yourself. You can't state your own boundaries. Have you ever seen a relationship and where somebody asks a question of a person, either the male or the female, and one of them looks up, the one who was not asked the question answers it? Have you ever seen that? Can you imagine a more obvious manifestation of a relationship in which one or the other says, here, take this, and you take charge? That is such a striking example of what I'm talking about. Or that you can't respond to your own creativity. Look, you've got it. The will is equal to the choices that you make. Now let's imagine watch this, you get an idea that comes in through the top of your head, and it floats to your mind. And the mind is such a seductive, negotiable instrument. You can do anything to control your mind. And the mind, so this idea pops into your mind and says, you want to start an ice cream parlor? And your mind says, well, I know what ice cream is. I know what parlor means. I like ice cream. This could be fun. Your mind, like this. Then the idea goes into the fifth chakra, in which you have to make choices that redistribute the energetic investments you are now living under. You have to, in order to build your ice cream parlor, you may need 50 extra circuits in present time than you already have, which means you have to make choices to unplug from the past, from anywhere, in order to get your energy into present time. And this is where, excuse me, that's a fifth chakra. Let's do it again. That's a fifth chakra faux pas. All right. You'll start making choices, or you have to make choices, in order to get your energy in present time so that you can continue moving this idea down the cycle into the first chakra, which is physical form. This is your fifth chakra. Have you ever felt all choked up? You ever felt, and incidentally, when, excuse me, when you get that feeling that you're choked up, it's so incredible because it's exactly what happens. What you're trying to do is prevent the perception your heart has just had from getting to your mind. That's exactly what you're trying to do. And the reason is because once the heart gets into the mind, it's all over but the crying for the mind. Okay? Because the heart takes charge. But it has to get through here, the will zone. Because once the heart gets up here, the choices the will makes are now determined by the heart, not the mind. We've just made an incredible shift in power. And so, in order to prevent that type of contact, we'll get choked up. Or we'll create a choked up situation. Now, this can cause a severe injury to your spine. Any of you ever get tight here? All right? Any of you ever get tight in that part of your body? I want you from now on, when you feel tight here, tight in the upper body, aside from going to your local chiropractor, and I believe in them so strongly, but you also have to begin to say to yourself, what am I holding on to? What am I getting choked up about? Because choked up doesn't mean just weeping. It means you're trying to not allow your mind to speak to your heart or your heart to speak to your mind. The other thing I want to point out here is this chakra, when you have a weak will, you can't describe your needs. Someone will say, what kind of emotional needs do you have? This combined with the low sense of self-esteem, and you're going to have someone who says things like this, I don't think I have any personal needs. I'm not sure. Maybe I do, maybe I don't. Then you'll go over to someone with a stronger will, and you'll say, do I have any personal needs? And they'll say, no, see, I don't. I knew I didn't. I couldn't figure out. You'll do this. Or you'll have the kind of will that someone can eclipse very easily. Let's say you do have personal needs, and you say, I don't think I really want to do this. Of course you do. Okay, here. And then what happens is you leave that situation absolutely hating yourself. And you know, watch it. Here, your will that you just gave to this other person, then your energy, your consciousness goes down to your heart, and you realize your heart says, what have you done? You've just agreed to do something that I will not do. I am not in this. So then, what you've just agreed to do goes down to your third chakra, and then it really starts hurting. Because at this point, your third chakra says, if you had any self-esteem, you wouldn't get yourself into these crises. When are you going to learn to manage your own boundaries? And then it drops to the second chakra, where you take out your weapons and you want to hate the other person. But the truth is you can't stand yourself. And then it drops to the first chakra, which is how it physically manifests in the world, this circumstance you never wanted to get yourself into in the first place. And you feel like a rape victim. But you've raped yourself. Okay? The positive side of the fifth chakra is that you get it. You get it. What do you get? You get the truth that the real meaning of will is not your capacity to control anybody else, but to control yourself. You know how hard that is? I mean, we know how hard that is. You know, several years ago now, I did in my early years of doing workshops, I did a workshop in Denmark. And this left such an impression on me. There was a lovely little girl in this. She wasn't a little girl. She was a petite woman, but she was so tiny. She was like a little girl to me. And she had AIDS. And she came up to me and she said, I'm trying to heal AIDS. Do you think I can do it? She also was limping. She was a prostitute. She had been badly beaten up. And I looked at her and I was talking about her capacity to develop a strong will. She smoked like crazy. So did I at the time. I thought to myself, we could be great friends. But anyway, but then I looked at her and I thought to myself, if I had the cure for AIDS in this hand and a cigarette in this hand, and I said to her, okay, pick one, her mind would go here, but all of her circuits would go here. And that no matter how much she tried to pull her will out of her nicotine habit, she could imagine that she was doing that. She could choose every day and scream, I pull my will, but the fact is her willpower would do this. Are you talking to me? Have we met? Because through her life, she's always given her will to everybody else to manage. Therefore, when she needed her will, finally, to act as her ally in the management of her own life, it wasn't there. And I cannot emphasize enough what it means to develop your will. You know how you want to do it? Like I said earlier, go to the busiest place in your life that drives you crazy. Instead of running away and seeking out quiet, which is just fine. But in the development of your will, you don't want to set up the perfect session for yourself or circumstance. You want the thing that draws your will out as easily as possible. So put yourself in that setting and then call your spirit back and say, get in here. I'm going to know that I'm in charge of you when I can walk near that type, listen to that type of music 24 hours a day and command my will not to hear it or command myself not to be attached to it. Then I'm going to know I've got some clout here. I'm learning. I'm getting some power. That's how you do it. That's how you do it. The fifth chakra in its power state gives you the courage for honesty and for speaking honestly in your life, for representing yourself in an honor-filled way with others, in having communication with others. And do you realize how difficult it is to speak honestly to somebody? Everybody, that's the loudest you've made all day. Right. That is the hardest act, I think, or one of the hardest by far that we've ever, and we have so many ways of disguising our feelings or maneuvering them so that we look like we're honest, we feel like we're honest, but we're not. The courage to be honest is phenomenal. And it doesn't just mean to tell people in an angry way what you will and will not do. It means the capacity to speak openly, and maybe not even openly, but honestly about your life in such a way that you aren't threatened by the responses of others, that you know no matter what someone else says to you or tries to talk you into, you're not going to be seduced. There is a real sense of strength in you when you know your will is not an instrument that's for sale. Okay? Then you have it's easy for you to state your boundaries and without having to fight a war for them. You know, people who I've met, and there's not a lot, but the people I've met who've had the strongest willpower have not had to speak about it. Pun intended. It simply vibrates from them. You know, this is not a person who's going to negotiate or betray his or her will. This one's not for sale. I think I'll find somebody else. Okay? You know it. I remember, I have a very close friend, a gentleman I teach with quite often, and he's not someone whose will can be negotiated. So the way I've learned to deal with him is I will simply say to him, I'm going to try and manipulate you this afternoon, okay? I just put it out on the table. I mean, because we've known each other too long and can see too well, all right? And then you have the power to use your will in ways where you can help other people become empowered, where you're not afraid of their growth. Now, that's a very, very challenging part for human beings because we are by nature competitive. And it's another reason why I always tie the fifth to the second, because your second is that sense of competition. And it's so easy for us to withhold our will in such a way that we don't want to give a circuit of our energy over to another lest they start running faster than we do. Right? But if you have that sense of inner will, that sense of inner guidance that tells you, my life is not in that person's hands, but in my own. And not only that, there comes the spiritual moment when you say, not my will, but thine. Where you finally take this instrument out, this just given you lifetimes of headaches, and instead of giving it to everybody else, you say, oh, I've had enough of this. You take it. And you begin to live from a very different level of power. That's the irony of consciousness. First, you have to go through this journey of becoming aware of how to use your will in the world and then how it doesn't work in the world. Isn't that interesting? Then you have to start using it to clean out your inside, and when you're done with all that work, you get rid of it. But this is the journey of the empowered will, where you finally become so empowered you don't need a will. Isn't that divine irony at its best? Now, you want to evaluate whether or not where your energy is invested, how the strength of your own willpower. You got to ask yourself these questions. Am I keeping my word? Do I keep my word? If not, how often have I broken my word, and to whom? And to whom? Have I lied today? How often do I tell lies? Get a sense. Ask yourself these absolutely raw, bone-raw questions. And as you do, feel whether energy is leaving your body. And you know that because you'll either, if you're answering yes to the following questions, do I lie? Do I use my words to hurt others? Do I speak dishonestly, or am I able to express myself honestly? Whichever, you ask yourself either way you want to speak to yourself. But if when you ask yourself the questions about the negative side of will, like, have I told a rumor about someone today that's simply not true? And you feel that energy of shame rush through you, or that energy of heat. Shame is a very hot energy, right? It doesn't feel cool. It feels, you actually flush with heat, and it goes through you. It's fire. Then you know you're not kidding yourself. You are losing energy fast. And then you sit with it, and you wait till whose images come into your mind. Okay? If it's, anybody's image, you check off in your mind, okay, that one, that one, that one, that one. And then when you come out of that exercise, ask yourself to think about it. What did I do? What did I say? Become conscious of it. And then literally assess, boy, have I got a lot of energy invested in that. How do I pull it back? Because you want to retrieve your energy. I really always recommend to others, and I actually finally have developed this as a daily practice. Isn't that interesting? I mean, I can teach about it. I've taught about it all over the world, and I didn't even do it myself. How do you think I felt when I got to this chakra? But anyway, but I finally have it down as my own discipline. And actually, I do it partly for the amusement of it. Like, where am I? I've let myself. It makes me feel like a loose cannon on deck. But I like to check in the evening and in the morning what I'm plugged into. I like to become aware of how fast I'll plug myself in to somebody's something, and I can't get myself unplugged from it. I mean, I like to become aware of these things. I mean, how many of you, for God's sake, can even unplug from a homemade cookie? I mean, we're talking about major league unplugging here, but let's put it in proportion. Do any of you eat cookie pieces? Because that myth, cookie pieces have no calories. So you piece your way all through a whole roll. Oh yeah, I've been there, done that. Going there, we'll do it. Okay. We're going to move up now to the sixth chakra. This is your reality headquarters. Reality headquarters. This is your center of, this of course is your mind, your intellect. This is an area that gets you into a lot of trouble. This is your center of human reasoning. Now, human reasoning, by its very nature, is unreasonable. Because it operates on this principle, this, dare I call it principle, this illusion. I like to think of this as Buddha's center. Because this has so much to do with the management of your illusions. Okay? And the mind says nothing's an illusion, because if I step on your foot, don't tell me that doesn't hurt. So to get to the point where you can take this instrument that manages your 5 senses and convince it that there are more senses in the world is an incredible journey of re-education. And that's what you go through as you work your way into the as you work your way through the maturation of the 6th chakra. You lose energy in this place because the mind likes rational and reasonable answers. And so you get stuck on things like this. How many of you have said to yourself, I'll move on with my life if I only could figure out why that happened? Any of you ever do that? All right. If you could only have a reason that makes sense to your mind, then you will take up your bed and walk. But until the mind has a logical, mind you, logical reason that includes the following, none of it was your fault. It won't go any further. Now, you know what I finally realized about the mind? It's a clever little bugger, is that the mind tends to encourage the rest of the human energy system, and particularly the heart, to hold on to grief. For this reason, it's a superstitious reason, quite frankly. The reason is very primal, which is this. If I hold on to all my grief from yesterday, I won't get any new grief coming tomorrow. Okay? So I stay locked in, and the mind keeps supporting this by giving me self-righteous reasons why I shouldn't forgive. And the self-righteousness just works its way all the way down. And then I am absolutely certain, because of my primal tribal belief in God, that our notion of human reason is the same as God's. This is the only difference, is the mathematics. If we are just people according to the law of an eye for an eye, then God is 100 times as just, but he still works along the logical lines. If we are supposed to be loving, then God is all loving. It's just logical. So, God operates according to our legal system. And that's how the mind likes it. Because then we can figure out how much does it cost to strike a deal with God so that we don't have to go to court. You know, it's this kind of thing. That's how the mind likes it. So that when you go on the spiritual journey, so much of the journey is the dismantling of your rational mind in order to allow the irrational, miracles, angel conversations, time travel, bilocation, the manifestation of the divine instantly into your hand to happen. Those are irrational acts. Now, this is an illustration of the closed mind. It almost speaks for itself, doesn't it? Now, and this, mind you, is so significant to issues not just of healing your body, but healing patterns that you've gotten yourself into in your life. Like, how come I can't make any money? How come every single time I've started on a creative project, I've fallen flat on my face? I want to know, is there a logical reason? No, there's no logical reason. There'll be a different kind of reason. There's this kind of reason. And you've got to have an open mind to get to the irrational. If you look for the rational reasons, you'll go this way. You'll take your sight and you'll go down here below the waist, because you will look to blame everybody else for why you've had failures in your life. Have any of you ever blamed anybody for something in your life? Okay. Instead, and so as a result, when someone offers you higher perceptions, like coincidences are really meaningful, there are many paths to healing. Healing meaning healing patterns that deal with the breakdown of your finances or your physical world or whatever, or why that part of your life has, in fact, disintegrated according to a higher level of reasoning. It may just have been time, but from your perception of human reasoning. You say, I'll determine the time. You know, one of the richest things a nun said to me, was, this was right before I graduated from college. And the college I went to was also the mother house of a group of nuns. And they had a beautiful chapel. They still have it, right? So I liked praying in that chapel. And shortly before graduation, my senior year, I was in there, and Sister George was coming out. And she was short, but don't kid yourself. Right? She was a powerhouse. And George, I always thought George was sort of a half a quart short until I realized this woman had a quality of spirit in her like I had never seen before. I mean, you'd see her in the spring smelling flowers, and she'd go into ecstasy. I always thought she didn't have a mind, but she didn't, but it was the right mind not to have. All right. So she anyway, she comes out of the chapel, and she says, oh, Carolyn, you know, it's student graduation, and you know, we make that kind of chit-chat. And then she says, what are you going to do after you graduate? Do you have any plans? I pulled out this list. Well, first, I'm going to start with winning the Pulitzer Prize, and then go on to the Nobel, and I'm dead. I'm going to live in Europe. I want to be an investigative news reporter. I want to do this. I want to do that. She looks at me, and she starts laughing, and she says, do you know how to make God laugh? And I thought, weren't you listening to me? And she said, tell him your plans. Okay. So, all right, and then there are more than the five senses. You see, this physical reality likes to work with five senses because if it's tangible, then you know you can maneuver it. But the closed mind is such a limited object because it's like carrying dead weight that continues to look for a reason that you won't see. And you know why you won't see a logical reason? Because a logical reason won't help you. The heavens set up circumstances for us, not so that we can find the logical way out, but so we will require the illogical. It's the nature of divine paradox. You're praying for guidance. Watch how the mind works in the guidance center. You pray for guidance. Do you honestly think for one moment that guidance is going to come in a logical form? A letter? A new credit card? Do you really think that the gods work that way? No. Heaven will always give you an illogical form of guidance. And I'll tell you the way heaven speaks. It works in paradoxes. What looks small is really big. What looks big is really small. I.e., the proverbial, the strength of a mustard seed can pull down a mountain if you really understood what strength is. Okay? So you look at what the power of the open mind is, and you see that the open mind recognizes that coincidences are not only meaningful, they're messages. So the next time you're in a situation where you think, I'm really wondering what's happening here, or should I do this, or should I do that? And you walk around and you bump into someone who says, I thought you should move to New York. I was just talking to someone, and you were just thinking, should I move to New York? Now, if you have a rational mind, you'll blow that off. But if you have an irrational mind, you'll sit down and think, I've just had a synchronistic event. Someone's talking to me. Look alive, look alive. And you begin to say, here it is, I'm getting a message. The guidance center's on. Start looking for illogical things. Don't even consider looking for logical. There are many paths to healing. Don't just look for the obvious. Look for the ridiculously unobvious, okay? Where you can stop measuring what's effective by whether or not you can lift it up or taste it. Instead, you realize, it would be very effective for me just to literally do this, walk, talk. You know what I do when I feel the worst? I play the 60s music. I love the music from the 1960s. It reminds me of very, very, very happy times in my life. I love the lightheartedness of the music. And so it absolutely feels, I love that rhythm. I love the Beatles. So it works. That's one of the ways. For other people, they say, let's go into the country. Leave me alone. Put on the 60s. And that works for me. ask yourself, again, we're going to go into what you ask yourself to figure out what you've invested your chakras in, your energy, your circuits. And that's, are you more rational or irrational? You know how you want to know? Yeah. You ask yourself, do I need details before I make a move? And if so, what kind of details? Do I need to know all the financial paper? Do I need to know who's on first base? What do I need to know before I'll make a move? Do I need rational information, or is irrational hunch enough? I'll tell you something just to tell you. I'm just going to mention this. Do what you want with it. But the gods always give you a risk and a no-risk proposition. If I were you, I'd take the high risk. Always take the biggest risk. And I'll tell you something else that will never, ever make sense to your rational mind, but here it goes. What really counts is not the road you take. It doesn't matter if you go left or right. It doesn't matter. What matters is the reason why you made the choice you did. Because if you're supposed to accomplish X, either road will get you there. What matters is the reason you chose the road you did. And if you decided to choose a road because it looked safe and all the things that requires, what you've chosen is the road of no faith. Okay? And if you decided, all right, I'm taking a risk, my ball's in your court, I'm going, you've chosen the route of faith. And in that route, you can expect one synchronistic experience every 3 hours. You can expect help out of nowhere. You literally have the power to sit down one evening and say, all right, God, you listen to me. I got a payroll to make on Friday. I've got this, I've got that. So what I need is 3 synchronistic acts and possibly 1 miracle. I'm going to bed. Right? I got to tell you that. You don't have to pray 3 times for the same goal. So I remind you again and again and again, please take this advice to heart. Take it to heart. Got the map? Take it to heart. You've got to squeeze past your will because you've got to convince your 5th chakra to have the courage to make totally irrational choices. But remind yourself every single day that it's not the rational choice that counts. Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and do stupid things. I'm telling you to look alive and that you're going to be offered a risk and a non-risk. And what you need to do is not evaluate what's on the outside, but whether or not you have courage on the inside. Now, what you want to ask yourself are those type of details. We're going to go into the 7th chakra, which is the upper level, as it were. This I love to refer to as your grace bank account. This is where you store your prayers. Isn't that a nice way to think of it? And this is where prayers for you by others are stored. Isn't that a lovely way to think of it? This is where you transfer the circuits of your own energy to others that you are praying for. And this is where when you go into contact, meditation, you don't even have to go into meditation. Why do we have to put our contact with God in such a tight parameter? This is where you receive grace constantly. You don't only and always have to be in the state of meditation. You just have to breathe. This is where your life force, your prana comes in. And every thought you have, every single thought you have, and it can be its own act of grace, which is why it's so, the journey of consciousness is the journey of being conscious, becoming conscious of exactly the ideas you give your energy, grace over to. Think of the energies you support, the thoughts you support, as gracing them, as to whether or not you'll give your grace. Grace, then, you can think of as your blessing. Think of it as whether or not you'll give something your blessing. So you can think of it that this is the center of mysticism. This is the center where you enter into that high voltage, visionary, mystical connection with the divine. This is high voltage intuition. It's way past intuition. This is intuition for we ordinary mortals. OM for short. Okay, get it? That's the high voltage visionary power that is given to others. Given, you don't develop this. This you are anointed with. Okay? You develop yourself to be a vehicle for this, but whether or not you get anointed is, I assure you, not your choice. This is the center through which that high-powered spirituality comes through that moves others and mountains. The teachers that have had it, the Jesus, the quality of a teacher like Jesus, or Sai Baba, or numerous other teachers that I can mention who have been able to make contributions to our culture, to our global culture. The Dalai Lama, Mother Teresa, people whose connection, Nelson Mandela, dare I put, to me, he's in this category. These are people whose heart-mind connection is well beyond human energy. They are connected to a God, I shouldn't say a God, but I was going to say the God force directly. Now, when a person experiences, what role does faith play in this? This is the center where you have your faith crises. Right? This is the center. This is the center where, when you ponder questions like, for what purpose was I born? If you ask those questions from below the waist, there's not much that's going to happen to you. But if you ask them from above the waist, this is the difference. So you're asking yourself from below the waist, I wonder why I'm down here. I wonder for what purpose I was born. And your angel's sitting there on the couch, flipping through, watching CNN. This again, just flipping through. And then comes the day where you ask the question from the 7th chakra. And you say, I mean it. What am I doing here? Am I supposed to be of service? And now your angel goes whoosh, off the couch and says, all right, let's go. Now we're going to work. And your angel pulls out your file and says, all right, let's do it this way. We're going to start by redoing the bottom half of your life. Okay, now, we'll start with where you live. I want you to move. And I want you to, we'll start with moving. I want you to move to a whole new state. And all of a sudden, you're possessed by this notion to get out of where you are. And then your angel says, oh, and while you do it, I want you to let go of the job you're in. This is the wrong occupation for you. So your angel says, are you going to do it, or shall I get you fired? Which way do you want this? Right? And of course, once that thought starts entering your mind, you don't want anything to do with it. You try to shut it off, shut it off. But your angel says, I'm giving you 2 months to act on this, otherwise I'm taking over. So your job begins to disintegrate more and more and more through your 5 senses. You can see it. How can you not? They moved your desk out. They sold your chair. There's no job left for you. So you decide, I think, all right, then you're done with that. Now you've got that part of your life taken care of. And your angel says, okay, now let's move up. 2nd chakra. I want you to leave the relationship you're in. This is not the right partner. I'm going to have a 7th chakra partner, so you get rid of your 3 chakra partner. And you say, you hear it, you feel it, but you start shaking it off like a piece of lice, you know what I mean? And it's not going anywhere. So your angel says, look, I've had it with you not listening to me. I'm going to arrange so that you have a dinner someplace and you're going to run into him, her, with somebody else, okay? Because you haven't been listening to me. We didn't have to do it this way, but you wouldn't listen. So the next thing you know, you see your soon-to-be ex-mate with this other person. And then your angel says, all right, now, in order to recover from these, I want you to do the following things. We're going to have to change your habits. You are to change your nutritional program. I want you to get into exercise. I want you to deal with your addictions. And I want this now. Move it. And then you start doing all this. You start with the yoga. You start with your whole life. But what you're doing is you're preparing for ascension. You're preparing for ascension so that you really can work in this other area of your energetic system in a high enough way to where you can work from the visionary energy that comes into all of us, not so that you see huge visions, but so that you can live beyond the state of illusion. And that makes your life a visionary experience. And that's enough. If you can just enjoy a sample of that quality. I'm going to give you a quote to think of that T.S. Eliot said. He said, we're not here to take, and we weren't born to indulge. We were born to kneel. Okay. Now, the lack of faith, quite frankly, I'm not sure there's a worse experience. If I had to list the worst experience that there is to live a life without faith. I mean, I can't imagine anything worse. Think of it in a tiny molecule form. Imagine that you lost faith that this flashlight would work again on your next trip into the basement. You realize how nervous you'd be from that? Now try living a life without faith. Think of it as though all of your circuits of energy are pouring into you and falling right out. They have absolutely no direction because you don't have a sense of what faith is, what you can put faith into. You don't trust anything. Everything scares you. Absolutely everything scares you. And so you picture yourself like this, and I think when you have faith you cannot not have faith. It's not possible. But when you don't have faith in a positive way, you will automatically have faith in a negative way. Do you know what I'm saying? Because you've got to channel this energy. If it doesn't go into something positive, it's going to go into the fact that there isn't something positive. You're going to have faith in that. It is a damaging situation. And it goes for you too. When you don't have faith in something, I want you from now on to remember you are now channeling it into some form of the absence of faith. You're draining yourself. It's one of the quickest ways to harm yourself. And how can you ever heal if you're living life itself without faith in what life is, which is a regenerative process? All right. So keep this, I want you to hold this image in your mind, that the Grace Bank account, your capacity to pray, I don't even care if you pray like this, and neither does God. Not that I have dinner with God every night and he talks to me, but the divine source, it doesn't matter. Even if every day you say the divine source, you confuse me constantly. I cannot figure out how you work. At least you make contact. You make conscious contact. You don't even have to make peaceful contact. Scream at the gods, but make some kind of contact. And then just use this image that there's prana coming in, and as you make contact, have any sense of gratitude. Don't always pray for your problem solution. Stop living in the school of charm that God is a mediator between you and a bad life on this planet. Stop praying like a stuffologist. God, give me stuff. God, protect my stuff. God, can I have more stuff? God, is my stuff sleeping with someone else's stuff? You know, stop praying like a stuffologist. Begin to realize that you can also express gratitude. You could say, thank you, Lord, for giving me. Thank you, God. Thank you, Divine Source, for letting me learn what I did today. Whether that learning was positive or negative. Thank you for showing me another area where I have to concentrate myself. Thank you for showing me another area where I have to get my spirit back, because if you showed me that, that means I can get my spirit back. That I'm ready to get my spirit back. You don't show me a recipe and not give me the way to cook it. That's ridiculous. Learn to pray consciously. Get out of the stuffology school of prayer. And learn to visualize the power of that grace bank account, that you're really surrounded by that. And as you breathe, you're surrounded by that. And don't be afraid to share grace with others. I'm going to tell you another favorite story of mine, because it's just so powerful, about a woman who suffered a car accident, and this was in England, and she had a near-death experience. And I love near-death stories. You know, I always frequently say that I lived with one of the men who did the majority of research on near-death experiences, and I really did attend parties where I was the only one who hadn't died. But anyway, she had this near-death experience. She's hovering over her body, and she can hear what the other responses are in the cars behind her. And she can hear people say, oh, this is just what I need, is to be late for my appointment, and this is just what I need. Any one of you ever do that? This is just, I don't need this, and this guy. But out of the fourth or fifth car, she sees this stream of light pour out and then get returned to her corpse, to her body, to this smashed up human being. And she thought, what's going on in that car? Boom, that quickly. She's hovering next to this woman who had entered the state of prayer for her, directing some of the grace from her bank account over to this woman who had just had the accident. So she got down the license plate number. And when she was recovered, she showed up on the front porch of that woman, literally with a basket of flowers, and said, thank you. This is the power of that center of your body. You need to learn to use it with that kind of consciousness. Now, you want to ask yourself questions. You want to ask yourself, do you believe in guidance? You ask yourself that. But if you do believe in guidance, how do you expect it to come to you? Are you looking for rational guidance or irrational? And what's more is, are you prepared to respond to guidance if you get it? Or do you want guidance on your own terms? And if so, sit down with yourself and figure out what are the terms. I did this in one of my workshops. I love this story. And I said to everyone, all right, what terms do you want God to contact you on? I mean, exactly what do you want? This one person says, this woman, God bless her, spoke honestly. And she said, well, I like a lot of time off. And I'm really not interested in going back to work because, you know, I have a nice routine for myself set up. I get up around 9:30 in the morning, and I like my morning walk, and I paint through the afternoon because I know that I'm going to be I know I have a career in art. And I like to read a lot in the afternoon, and then my husband comes home, and, you know, we have dinner, and we talk, and sometimes we go out for a walk, and I'm not really but, you know, I really believe that I think God should direct me in what art I should paint. And I'm looking at her. You know, and it's so difficult for me to not, you know, say something direct to a person like that. But I thought, well, and I said, well, you let me know if God tells you how to become the next Van Gogh, won't you? And, you know, you have to take a real good look. If the way, in fact, you pray and the way you ask for guidance is truly guidance on your own terms. Because then you are really going to come to realize that the God you want to know is a very conditional God. All right? And that you want to take a look at as well, because if you wonder exactly what guidance is, and you realize real guidance, the kind of guidance that comes fast and furiously, is the kind of guidance that only a person who has no conditions can receive. Which is why I think we look at mystics or spiritual yogis and realize we're looking at people who have no restrictions. You want to ask yourself, do you feel a connection to God? Pay attention to, become conscious of what are the spiritual truths you live by. What do you really believe in? What are these patterns of God? What do you want God to be like? What do you want your spiritual life to be like? Ask yourself these questions. And don't just ask them, you know, like once and keep rolling with the ball. Some of these questions you have to go back to, sometimes on a daily basis, which is what do I trust? What don't I trust? What am I thinking today about God? Do I do this? Do I feel very positive about God when things are going my way and very negative? Do I think God is deaf when things aren't? Do I have a movable portrait of God? Or can I hold the position that God is a compassionate, loving, guiding force no matter what's happening in my life? And that everything that's happening in my life is for a reason. That is a tough one to hold on to, but I suspect that that's probably the truth. I have a deep sense of faith. I truly believe that when you pray, you get guidance. That you don't have to repeat your prayers all the time because God's not deaf. That when you ask for help, it's in there in the blink of an eye. That you have to let go of the way you think help is going to come to you. That everything has a purpose in your life, even if you can't see it. That every relationship has a purpose in your life, even though that purpose may hurt a great deal. When people say to me, oh, now let me see, I've just met somebody who has the same wounds as I do, and we're wound mates and we're soulmates. And I want to say, will you get out of here? I'll tell you who your soulmate is. Tell me the one person who has caused you the most pain in your life, and that is your soulmate. Because it's the person who has expanded your soul the most. Well, I believe all of these things are really true. I believe that there are so many deep spiritual teachers in our history and in the world now who are that are trying to teach us that the only real meaning of this life is to learn that life is only for spiritual development. And there is no other meaning. There is no other meaning. And I think that's a frightening thing because we come from a long, long tradition that separates our physical life from this spiritual life. That if we're going to choose spiritual development as our priority, we therefore must abandon physical life. I think that, I know that as we make the transition to this next culture, to this energetic culture that we are making now, I'm not talking about anything that's 2,000 million years in the future, I'm talking about now, that we will merge these two and recognize that the genuine spiritual path that we're on now, well, I don't want to say genuine, that the next step of evolution within the spiritual path is the merger of our spirit with our physical body, and living then within in a simultaneous harmony with the power and the energy that flows through both. And I believe that's where we're going. The last thing I want to share with you is the significance of doing a daily personal inventory. I can't emphasize enough how crucial this is to your health and to your healing process. And again, in terms of the journey of consciousness, this is what it's about. Figuring out where you've left your spirit every day. What I've found as a very effective shortcut is to work with what I call the 7 sacred truths. These are the manner in which I present the truths, which I believe to be universal. I put them in my own language. And I think they do represent what we would call universal truth. And so I've lined them up in 7. And what I would say is that just go through these every day. They're a very quick and truthful shortcut as a way of evaluating and analyzing where your energy is. And as you say these to yourself, you're going to ask some questions like, all is one. It's a primary truth. Think about that. That's a tribal truth. It's your primary truth. And then close your eyes and ask yourself, did I have a prejudicial issue today? Did I lose my thought or lose my spirit in any version of tribal warfare? Whether that version was verbal or lose it in my thoughts. Was I harmful to another person because of the tribe they represented? You ask yourself these types of energy, these types of energetic thoughts, because you realize you've just invested part of your precious life force into supporting that kind of negativity. And I want to tell you something else. You even want to look at it. You know, there are many wonderful groups that are doing a lot on behalf of the earth, like the environmental groups that form ecological tribes as such. But if you contribute energy to these groups that is a hostile kind of energy, like we'll get those people who are doing this to our planet, you're waging war and you're actually helping them out. You're giving them fuel. You're giving the other side bullets to shoot us with. Instead, you got to rise above the waist and you got to say, all right, you're going to shoot me with a bullet, I'm going to shoot you with love. Let's see who wins. And not love in the emotional sense, but in the compassionate sense that says this is a natural process of the evolution of life. And these people are evolving. I had to go through that stage. Who knows how many trees I killed? Give people room to evolve. Okay? This is also the part of your body that connects you, when you look at all is one truth, to all of nature. Feel the positive energy of nature come into you. Feel if, in fact, you're living in a balanced way with your family, with those that are in the closest circle to you, in your community. Feel the energy of what would be your tribal connection. Energy coming into your field, energy going out. Learn to feel this energy. This is what consciousness is about. You feel your energy system first, and then you take a check of how strong your physical body feels. You want to learn to make this connection at all times. And you move into the second chakra, which, now, as the chakras move, remember, all is one is the large group one, and then it becomes the one-on-one connection, and the truth is honor one another. And in the work of honoring one another, you ask yourself if you've lost, it's not just honoring one other person, it's the issues that a one-on-one relationship represent with one another. So you ask yourself, have I lost my energy over financial issues today? Over a need to control somebody else? Have I lost my power over an act of vengeance? Feeling envious about someone? How much power am I giving over to that? And then when you ask yourself these questions, take time to actually feel the energy flow through you. I think this is where a wonderful practice like yoga comes in. You breathe in your prana and just look for the holes. Where are they? Like looking through, what is that called? Swiss cheese. Look at where you're leaking your power. How much, how fast, how strong, what are the consequences? Do you have an addiction? All right. What are they and how fast are you losing your power to those? Pay attention to this dynamic of energy because you want to keep this in check. This is how you sense continually. Do this every day. What have I invested my energy into that's negative? And then you want to reverse it. And you want to say, what positive energy is coming back to me? Can I feel the energy being sent to me from people who love me? Can I feel the support of other people? We are so accustomed to focusing our attention only on negativity and loss that we don't even know what it's like to recognize positive energy. And not only that, we're uncomfortable receiving it. And when you're in that situation, how in the world can you heal? Do you understand how totally ridiculous healing is to someone who is uncomfortable with positive energy? You've made yourself a vehicle that can only withstand barbed wire going through it. And when someone sends silk, you freeze. You've got to be able to recognize when loving, positive energy is being sent into your system as well, so that you can feel the energy of appreciation and you can allow it to come into your system. Okay? Honor oneself. This, of course, obviously, when you take a look at evaluating this truth, you got to ask yourself, do I like myself? Did I feel confident today? If not, where did I lose strength? Did I have any, did I criticize someone today, or was I criticized by someone? Work with that truth. Ask yourself, did I operate within my sense of integrity? Did I follow my honor code? You ask yourself, and when you get used to this, it moves like this. It moves as fast as it gets. In the beginning, you have to sort of pay more and more conscious attention to, but pretty soon it becomes such an automatic language that when you're out in the field, as it were, and the moment you're in a situation where you're about to lose power because you're about to dishonor your honor code, boom, you see it. It goes this fast. It actually happens that fast, as if you've pushed up an option, a choice that says, be mindful of what you're doing here. It's no longer unconscious. You become incredibly conscious. The third one. The fourth one is love is divine power. That's almost self-explanatory. You live in this belief of love, so you got to ask yourself, did I act through love? Did I dwell on my heartaches today, or in the health of my heart? Did I appreciate how much love I could carry in myself, or how much love was taken from me because of my past life experiences? Do I keep draining that? Do I dwell in being unforgiving? Do I feel like someone should forgive me first before I even budge on them? Do I enjoy not being forgiving because it gives me clout with somebody else? Ask yourself these questions. How much energy am I losing over this? Do I simply not want to forgive because it's serving my purpose in some way? Do I know what self-love is? What does that mean? Am I getting closer? Have I gotten past the stage where self-love means self-indulgence? Am I moving toward a level of true self-respect? You move through that truth. All right? Then ask yourself to consider, what does it mean to surrender my personal will to the divine? And again, you ask yourself, am I praying with a private agenda? Am I praying with conditional surrender to God? Do I really want to surrender my will, or am I still caught up in the illusion that I'm in charge of my own life? Do I speak honestly with people? Have I made choices today that reflect what I believe my purpose in life is? Have the choices I made supported my spiritual life or interfered with it? And literally at that point, you want to close your eyes, and you want, with every one of these, you want to add the thought, I'm calling my spirit back. I am choosing consciously to retrieve my spirit, to call my spirit back. Act in a conscious way. Even if you don't feel that energy come in instantly, act in a conscious way to say, I'm calling my spirit back. I will not allow my spirit to leave my body that easily anymore. And breathe it in, breathe it in. And at first, I'm telling you, you won't necessarily feel this visionary electrical charge pour through you. Because part of the process of getting your energy back is becoming disciplined enough to stick with a practice. You don't earn the degree by attending one class. All right? You got to work for it. You got to work for it. And with every year that passes, you get stronger and stronger. And pretty soon, you develop a fluency in it. You move to the next one. It says, seek only truth. This is a delicious one to live by. Because you ask yourself again and again and again, do I believe things that are true or truth? Do I make up things in my mind that serve my journey in this lifetime? Or do I really live by that which is truth? Do I judge others? Do I send my energy into harsh judgment of other people? Have I decided what's best for someone's life because it suits me? Am I releasing my energy in that way? Do I honor others by being able to honor the secrets they've asked me to hold for them? Do I literally live by situations in which I can see the struggling of other people and I'm able to pray for them in a clear, open way without using, the blockage of my intellect to decide they deserve this? Am I able to transcend my sense of what justice is and release it to the wisdom of God? That's a tough one, and you ask yourself that. At the same time, you ask yourself, am I open to new ideas, or have I become literally and metaphorically a blockhead? Where I don't want new ideas. Am I clinging to a tiny reality because it makes me feel safe? All right. Do I call myself open-minded, but in fact, I'm not? And I like new ideas to flow in at a certain speed, because the slower I keep them, the slower the slower I allow them in, the slower will be the changes in my life. You calibrate the speed at which your life changes by the speed with which you allow new thoughts in. Am I making sense to you? It's one and the same. So if you're afraid of fast evolving, if you're afraid to evolve fast, you'll slow down the speed with which you allow the new in and get rid of the old. You'll cling to the old even though you know it's not truth. But you'll hold on to it because it slows down how fast your car can go. Okay? Let's go into the seventh. Live in the present moment. Dump the garbage every day. Evaluate, am I carrying something in me that I don't need to have anymore? Am I holding on to old baggage? Am I carrying the dead with me? What form of the past am I still holding on to that I need to let go of? And you evaluate that, even if the past was 2 hours ago. If it happened a minute ago, it qualifies as past time. But if you go back 2, 3, 5, 20, 80 years, and you're still holding on to it, you need to have a long conversation with you. And when people tell me I incarnated, I had a lifetime 600 years ago, and I'm still trying to resolve this, they expect me to applaud their revelation? And I'm looking at them 600 years, and you're still working on this? I see it from quite the opposite. Because it's so preposterous. I don't celebrate that sort of nonsense with people. I say, get yourself into present time. Live fully in the moment. Why does that allow? That allows synchronicity. That allows your mind to go into matter, your ideas to go into the cooperation of your power of will, the power of the heart, and boom, hit the floor, hit physical reality. This is how mystics manifest instantly. They don't have any of their circuits in the past. They are powerfully and fully in present time. So that when they say, touch you and say heal, that electricity genuinely, it's the electricity of present time combined, because present time electricity, to become a vessel of present time is the same as becoming a fully faithful spirit. You are fully living by the truths. You have no part of your spirit left in the mausoleum of your life, any lifetime. And you are fully a vehicle for the divine, because the divine is a present time force. Okay? Do you spend quality time in prayer? I don't have to talk about quiet prayer. Do you spend time consciously relating your life to God? Are you angry with God? Do you have a whole notion of how you think God should talk to you? Never mind the conditions under which you will evolve, but your impression of what God is and what God should be. Then, for the fun of it, ask yourself to know, did anything synchronistic happen to me today? Did anything that remotely look like guidance happen to me today? And if it did, what do I think it should mean? Should I just recognize that I'm being put on alert that I'm about to receive guidance? Or do I interpret this? What do I do? Just leave it alone? Have fun with your relationship with the divine. Don't always think, in fact, rarely allow yourself to think, that the reason that guidance is always the forebearer of bad news. Okay? Or the manner in which you're supposed to get out of something that hurts. Why can't we hold in our minds that our relationship with God can be a pleasure cruise? We don't. We hold in our minds that it's just the journey of pain, and that prayer is just to get out of one painful situation only to be in the next. So pay attention to where your energy is on a daily basis. This is exactly what it means to learn the skill of self-evaluation, to learn how to manage your energy system. This is exactly how you do it. You pay attention, you ask yourself questions, you go into a self-evaluative process every single day. The more you do this, the more natural it becomes, and you'll begin to recognize when that energy is leaving your body, and you no longer will literally write it off as just one of those things, but you'll start saying to other people, excuse me for a minute, I'm losing some energy, I'll be right back. You'll take a step, you'll breathe it in, get back here, and you'll go back to your day, feeling centered instead of feeling like you're falling all over the place. All right, make this a daily practice. I want to close with a prayer that means the most to me in my own life. I hope it will mean something to you in yours. God, be in my head and in my understanding. God, be in my eyes and in my looking. God, be in my mouth and in my speaking. God, be in my tongue and in my tasting. God, be in my lips and in my greeting. God, be in my nose and in my smelling, inhaling. God, be in my ears and in my hearing. God, be in my neck and in my humbling. God, be in my shoulders and in my bearing. God, be in my back and in my standing. God, be in my arms and in my reaching, receiving. God, be in my hands and in my working. God, be in my legs and in my walking. God, be in my feet and in my grounding. God, be in my joints and in my relating. God, be in my guts and in my feeling. God, be in my bowels and in my forgiving. God, be in my loins and in my swiving. God, be in my lungs and in my breathing. God, be in my heart and in my loving. God, be in my skin and in my touching. God, be in my flesh and in my paining, pining. God, be in my blood and in my living. God, be in my bones and in my dying. God, be at my end and at my reviving. Thank you.